What's up trainers, Jerpy's here, and in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of what I believe is the absolute best deck to play on the ladder right now in order to finish out your climb. Now that deck is composed of Arceus paired with Pichu, Incineroar, and Oricorio. And I'd have to say that this is the absolute fastest deck I have ever played since Pocket has launched. As you'll see later in the video, my games averaged anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes, a lot of times running the opponent over within the first, second, third, or fourth turn. Now, I took this deck into Masterball on the back of about 30 games that I played in one sitting. That's how fast this deck is. I was able to finish my climb with a 5-game win streak into Masterball and end the season on a 64% win rate. Now, the first 30 games I did play using the Sylveon Espeon deck, and if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend you watch it. I've linked it in the description below, as it is also one of the strongest, if not the strongest deck in the meta right now, and will continue to be strong moving forward. But back to Arceus. Let's talk a little bit about how this deck works. Alright, so in the version of the deck that I ended up actually playing all 30 of my games with, I was running 2 Oricorio, 2 Arceus X, I was running 1 Pichu, 2 Incineroar, and 2 elemental switches. And that's kind of the main bones of how the deck actually wants to function. You then obviously have your Pokeballs, you have 1 X speed, which does allow you to be able to save some of that energy that you're going to want to actually use the elemental switch in order to bring up into your active Pokemon. We've got red card for essentially tempoing and card advantage against your opponent. We've got 1 cape in order to be able to put on that Arceus in order to allow it to survive a lot of those different breakpoints that exist in the meta currently, getting it up to that 160 HP, which is really, really important. You have the 1 Ilma, which is really acting as, hey, I'm stuck with my Arceus in the lead starting off, and I really just want to pull that back and get something else like my Pichu or maybe a Incineroar up there. And so it kind of gives you that fallback just as a singleton. 2 Giovannis, which honestly are great. They work fantastically with Incineroar, putting its 50 attack at 60, which allows you to snipe a lot of basic Pokemon early in the game, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then also allows your Arceus to hit for 140, which is also an important breakpoint in the meta. And then a singleton of Cyrus, which is really just there for closing power when you need to close the game out mid to late game. When you're going first, one of the sneaky ways that you're going to want to try and set the deck up is actually putting that Incineroar up in the active spot when you have a Giovanni sitting in your hand. What ends up happening is that at the end of your first turn, you're able to actually, put that energy on the Incineroar, and then as you get into your third turn, you're able to then use the Giovanni, put an energy on the Incineroar, and hit for 60. And a lot of times, your opponent will have a basic Pokemon sitting in that active spot that also has an energy on it that's going to go down. Particularly EVs or basic EVs are one of the most common basics that you're going to see in that spot, but also things like Charmander and a number of other basics are at that 60-point threshold. And so you could just simply snipe games right off the bat by playing this kind of early, turn 1 Incineroar followed by energy and Giovanni. Now, if you're going first, there's another way you can also play it out, which is really kind of your end ultimate win con, which is really getting your Arceus powered up. So if you're going first and you have your Pichu, you're going to go ahead and put that in your active spot. You ideally want to get Arceus and a Incineroar on the board, on the bench behind it, and then have an elemental switch or draw into an elemental switch in your hand. Essentially what you're going to do is on turn 1, you're going to bring in energy from Pichu onto Arceus. The Incineroar is just going to use its ability and bring an energy onto it. You're then going to, on turn 3, place some second energy on Arceus, move it into the active spot, elemental switch the Incineroar energy onto the Arceus, and now you are swinging for up to 130 damage on turn 3. Honestly, this is what happened in the majority of my games. I was able to hit this combo, and there's really no way that a deck can really go over the top of it or survive something this fast. It's pretty incredible. Now, there's also, if you're going second, a number of other ways that you can play this out. But what I like to do is I like to actually put that Arceus in the front and actually play that first in the active spot. And then what you're going to do is you ideally want to get a Incineroar on the board. And what you're going to do is on turn 2, you place the energy on Arceus. You end up getting an energy on Incineroar. And then on turn 5, turn 4, you're going to then use the elemental switch in order to move that energy up and swing with Arceus. So honestly, going second is not the most ideal, but you can still be swinging for up to 130 on turn 4, which is still pretty insane and pretty incredible. Now, the Oricorio is really just in the deck in order to help kind of battle against some of the X decks that are out there. And so this deck, while it's super fast and can run people over quite a bit, there are decks that can go over the top of it, and that's what Oricorio is there for, because the decks that can go over the top of this deck are usually ones that are relying on really powerful X Pokemon. And so the Oricorios, you can kind of just like bounce them in and out in order to kind of, tempo as well as snipe decks that are relying heavily on those X's, and then powering up your Arceus in the back to be able to come in and finish things off. Now, as I said, this deck is absolutely amazing. It has tons of different ways that you can kind of set up, whether going first or second. And I'll show you in these following games and some of these key matchups exactly how this plays out and just how fast this deck is. But first, if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, I highly recommend that you hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you've played this deck or a version of it and have been having success. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the first matchup. All right, so cutting into the first matchup here, we see that we're going first, which is pretty ideal for this deck. It's kind of what we're wanting to do here. And we see that we have a Pichu and a Incineroar in our hand, as well as a Giovanni. So one of the things we could do here is we could actually try to snipe their frontline Pokemon by playing the Incineroar first and then having the Pichu on the board in the back. But drawing into the Arceus here, which was kind of what our ideal situation we were trying to get into with that elemental switch in hand, is to actually play to the turn 3 Arceus combo. So you can see here, we're going to go ahead and use Pichu's ability here to add an energy onto Arceus. We're going to go ahead and watch Incineroar put its energy on itself, and then with that elemental switch in hand, as long as we don't have like a red card or a Mars that attacks us and ends up forcing us to shuffle that back into the deck, we're in an amazing spot, right? Like, they can't evolve into anything, right? They can place an energy on their Morlul and they can hit us for 10, but to be honest, there's not a whole lot they can do. We're going to be swinging for as much as maybe 110 on the next turn with Arceus, unless we're able to actually draw a Pokeball, and so now we're going to be hitting for 130. Really, overkill doesn't really matter. Honestly, there's not going to be a whole lot that the opponent can do here, as we're going to just be able to go ahead, put that energy on the Arceus, pull the Pichu back, use the elemental switch in order to pull that energy up onto Arceus, and then swing and knock out their active Pokemon. And so you'll see here just how, we had two options. Like, going first, we could have played the Incineroar and leaned on using Giovanni in order to snipe their frontline Pokemon, right? A really aggressive initial start, but does force you to then have to play this mid game a little bit slower. Or actually put the Pichu up and bank on drawing into that Arceus so that we can actually hit our achieved combo, which is this 130 on turn 3. And you see here, the opponent is going to go ahead and try and draw a card. Honestly, there's not a whole lot they can do. I'm assuming that, this is probably a Crobat deck with Shiinotic being used in order to draw it more consistently. And just like that, the opponent is run over in under 3 minutes. All right, heading into the next matchup here, we see that once again we're going first, which is pretty ideal for us. We see that we've got the Pichu, the Incineroar, and the Arceus with the elemental switch in hand. So this is incredible. We literally have the ideal combo, and we're going first. So we're just going to go ahead and play the Incineroar. We're going to play the Arceus, and then we're going to go ahead and start our turn. From here, we see that we are playing a dark deck. So we see Neolego. So this is going to be Poison. Or it could be Guzzlord. Not exactly sure. Guzzlord seems to be the more common and popular deck right now, and so we see we've also got that Oricorio. We can go ahead and put it on the board in order to not give the opponent any sort of target for a red card or a Mars. we're going to go ahead and put that energy on Arceus and hope that they don't attack our hand, and understand the combo that we are that we have actually set up for this turn. And the nice thing about the Arceus deck is that it is actually resists all special effects, so don't have to really worry about it getting poisoned, and really the Neolegos and their abilities are completely countered when it comes to playing the Arceus. So at this point, it's pretty not much that they're really going to be able to do. You see, we can actually just drop that energy just like last game. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move Arceus up, the Pichu back. We're going to use the Elemental Switch to bring that energy from Zeraora onto the Arceus, and then we're going to go ahead and swing for 130 here. And once again, don't have to worry about any sort of poison damage coming in due to our special ability. Now, at this point, there's really not a whole lot they can do, right? Like, yes, they did have an energy on that. They could, use Lusamine in order to bring that energy onto, Pokemon on their back line. But if they add it to the Neolego, they're only hitting for 30 with no poison damage. If they do draw into like a Guzzlord, they, can actually, hit into us and pull energy off of our Arceus, which would be pretty devastating. But you can see here, they only can put it on the Celesteela. They can't do anything, and that's all she wrote. All right, getting into the third game, we're going to go ahead and see that once again, we're going first. And very ideal for us. We see fire energy, and so we're going to assume that this is either the Eevee box deck, or this is going to go ahead and be Charizard. So once again, we see we've got the nuts again, and these are actually 3 games that I played in a row. The games I'm showing you are from my win streak into Masterball. So we can actually put the Pichu up front. We've got 2 Zeraoras on the bench. We've got our Arceus. We've got just one last card in our hand, which is the thing that completes our combo, which is the Elemental Switch. So we're going to go ahead and use the Pokeball. We draw into an Oricorio, so not really going to matter. And we see that we're playing a Litten, so this is going to be an Incineroar deck instead. And so, once again, just want to call out, you see another basic Pokemon that's 60 HP, right? So you can see how that like turn 3 Zeraora plus Giovanni can just absolutely snipe so many of these decks and just clear them out. But here, we're obviously going to play to our ideal combo, which is going first, having that Zeraora and that Arceus on the bench, the Elemental Switch, and then we're going to go ahead and be swinging for 130 on turn 3. And so, honestly, pretty insane, pretty incredible. Like, not a lot of decks that have been able to actually move this fast and hit for this kind of damage. And wow, okay, they actually go ahead and Iono, which didn't really expect, but once again, actually draw ourselves into the Elemental Switch. So, not got a little bit lucky there. So, we're going to go ahead, see they're going to hit us. We survive, so we're not giving up a point here, which is nice. And we're going to go ahead and just use the Elemental Switch on the Arceus, pull it up, and we're going to clear out that Litten and see what the opponent, how their opponent responds to that. And as I said, honestly, there's not really anything they can do. Like, I guess they could potentially draw into like that rare candy and then be able to evolve that Litten in the back, but they're so far away from being able to really do any meaningful damage to us that the Arceus is just going to be able to roll them over. And in the meantime, we can basically be building up our Zeraoras in the back, to be able to come in, sacrifice, throw some chip damage down. So we're just completely loaded here, right? There's not anything we can do. This game is just completely lopsided, and that's why this combo is so incredible, right? Like 3 games in a row, I had the combo pieces, and this is not even the only way to play the deck out, right? Like you'll see in future games, there's actually a number of other ways that we will play this out. All right, heading into the 4th game, and we see that once again we're going first, so pretty lucky. That's exactly where we want to be. And we'll see here we've got the Zeraora in the active spot. However, we do have 2 Professor Researches and a Pokeball, so here and the Elemental Switch. So what we want to try and do here is we want to try and draw into an Arceus. Now, if we draw into an Arceus, we are going to also want to have that X speed at hand, and that's why it comes in handy, because then you can use that X speed in order to bring your Zeraora back, save the energy that it was able to pull onto it, and then use the Elemental Switch in order to once again be hitting with that Arceus on turn 3. So we use our Pokeball. Now we're going to go ahead and use the Professor's Research here because we're really looking for an Arceus. And so drawing into that first allows us a better chance of finding one. And there we go. On the third try, we're able to draw into the Arceus. We can put that down. We can go ahead and play the other Zeraora in order to get that energy advantage that we get with its ability. And then from there, we're just going to kind of hold back, and we're going to leave the rest of the cards sitting in our hand, which may be a mistake here. Honestly, we probably wanted to play the Oricorio in order to get our hand size down to 3 cards, so that it honestly, the opponent didn't feel like it was something they want to target. I see a lot of people using red cards in Mars when you have 4 cards in your hand, which honestly doesn't really do that a whole lot, right? Like, they're giving up a card for the 1 card you're giving up. And so you see here the opponent's playing the Darkrai kind of poison variant. And, and to be honest, like, we're in a great place, right? Like, that poison dart isn't going to have any effect on our Arceus. We're essentially going to be able to, get in here. We're going to be able to, put an energy on the Arceus. On the following turn, we're going to be able to use the elemental switch, get the Arceus powered up to 3 energy, and we're going to be able to swing into that Darkrai. So, pretty ideal. And actually, this is incredible. Drawing into the second elemental switch means that we actually have the ability here and the X speed. So, I mean, this is exactly where you want to be, right? So watch this. We're going to use the X speed in order to pull the Zeraora back. We're going to pull the Arceus up, and we're going to use double elemental switch here in order to have the Arceus ready to rock and roll once again on turn 3. So you see here just another way that this combo can play out. Not the most ideal way, probably the most complicated way for it to play out. But just like that, we're going to sit here, and if only we had a Giovanni that we could play, and so we could just one-shot that Darkrai. But honestly, they know that that is the game. All right, getting into the final matchup here. Once again, we see we are going first. So we're going to take a look at the energy. We see grass energy. And looking at our hand, we see we've got the Giovanni and the Zeraora. We're going first. So our goal here is going to really just try to snipe that front Pokemon, right? So like a lot of the basics people are playing these days are going to be at 60 HP or lower. And so it puts it right within range for us to be able to clear out with that Zeraora on turn 3. Now, this looks like it's going to be a Sweets Relay deck. So interesting, right? Like, these decks are, not the most powerful, but they can really get rolling, and they do require you to have to run through 3 single prize Pokemon in order to beat it, right? So these decks can be problematic, and they can do some really fun and interesting things. So you see here, because we know that Swirlix is at 60 HP, playing to the Zeraora and Giovanni combo on turn 3 is definitely the way to go, right? Especially if they put an energy on it, right? That's just going to go ahead, and that's just going to allow us to swallow that energy right up. So, if they have something like a cape, they could, really avoid this combo. I have seen, some of my opponents actually, kind of understand what's happening and how this deck works. And so they do play that cape on that lead Pokemon to avoid that one-shot combo. But you see here that they actually don't have the cape and don't play it. So we're going to go ahead and put that energy on the lead Zeraora. This is great because it's, they were only able to get one of those Sweet Relay hits in. So, powering up, those other Pokemon that rely on that in the back puts us in a good place, right? So you see here we've got, a Zeraora with 1 energy in the back, and then we've got an Oricorio, which is completely pointless in this matchup, and then we've got that Arceus. So from here, we really want to actually start getting that Arceus in a range where we can put an energy on it, because even with 1 energy on it, an elemental switch does give us the capability of being able to swing with it on the next turn. So an Arceus can, go from your opponent's perspective, from a place where, oh, hey, it's 1 energy away from attacking, to, oh, hold up, elemental switch, now you're attacking on the next turn. So you really have to be careful, when playing against, the mirror, that's something that you could see, right? Like, that Arceus is, with a 1 energy on it, is always going to be in a range where they're going to be able to swing here. So, coming in with the Cherubi, being at 50 HP, like, once again, really problematic for them, right? Like, we don't even need a Giovanni here, and we can go ahead and clear this out and take our second prize point, and that really leaves them with, the 2 Pokemon in the back. So they could evolve the Alchemy, or they have evolved into the Alchemy, and so that does, because they have been able to use the Sweet Relay move twice, they are going to be able to, clear out our frontline Zeraora. But we should still be in a perfectly fine place, right? Like we can bring in our backup Zeraora, we have our Arceus, we have Oricorio. We're still in a really, really good spot here. And we also have a Cape that we can play and a red card and a Cyrus, even though I highly doubt that we will actually need to play those. And so you see they're able to hit us for 80, having that Sweet Relay attack having gone off twice before the Alchemy came in. So without, a Giovanni, they're not going to be able to clear out our Zeraora. We're going to be able to survive it with 10 HP. We could throw the Cape on it if we wanted to for good measure. You also see that we do have the Elemental Switch, which, does put that, Arceus in a position where we can set it up in order to just clear out whatever they want to do here. And so that's actually what we're going to do. It's kind of the safe play, right? Like we don't really want to get blown out here if they do have a Giovanni and end up actually losing both those energies on the Zeraora. And then you have the Arceus sitting there not being able to attack on that next turn. Even though, there's not really a whole lot the opponent can do, putting that second energy on the Arceus instead of swinging in with the Zeraora is just kind of how you show a little bit of patience in order to actually set up the checkmate situation, and that's exactly what we did. We put them in checkmate position. And there you have it. I know a lot of people are going to watch this and go, oh, you just showed your good games, your wins, the ones where you had the combo come together, but I'm going to be completely honest. Those games were 5 games that I played in a row where it all came together like that. And to be honest, if you look at the 30 games that I played, they all functioned just about the same. There was maybe a couple games where you just brick. I mean, it happens. And there's some games where you just don't get the cards and your opponent gets the nuts and they roll over you. But to be honest, the majority of my games were so fast, so consistent. The combo came online in so many different ways, whether first or second turn starts, you just have a lot of options. And this deck can just like get going faster than anything else I've ever played. Now, if you're wanting to climb the ladder and you're wanting to really work your way up into, the last few days of the season, I highly recommend this deck, right? This deck is super fast, super consistent. You're going to get a lot of wins. You're going to get them really, really quick. And, I actually think that a deck like this still has a lot of play, even going into the next season, just because of how fast it is, right? And, how powerful it can be just on that, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, starts. So honestly, would I change anything in this deck? I'm not sure. Like I've seen some versions running an extra Pichu, but to be honest, you don't really need to lean on the Pichu every time in order to really get going. I think I've seen decks go down to 1 Giovanni. I think that's fine. You could use Leaf instead of Ilma. Really up to you. To be honest, I didn't really ever have to use the Ilma, and honestly don't think I ever would have needed to use a Leaf either. So it's really just kind of up to you. I think that the X speed is pretty essential. It definitely came in handy in a couple, I would say more than a few games, where it allowed me to actually hit my combo, where I would have been an energy down and had to wait an extra turn. But yeah, other than that, deck is incredible, really, really fun, and I hope you have the same success that I had with it. With that, I appreciate you making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.